Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to make a U-part wig on the sewing machine, but I wanted to start from the very beginning. So here we have a 22-inch canvas head block. I have already marked off my measurements where you see me pointing those little white marks. Those are my measurements that I've already taken previously. That's measuring my nape, the back of my head, my hairline, my forehead, and so on and so forth. You can actually Google how to take the measurements of your head if you want to learn how to do that yourself. For this video, I will be using a mesh dome wig cap. I love these wig caps because you can see straight through them especially when you're on the sewing machine, you can see what you're doing. I don't believe there's necessarily a front or a back side. Like you can use either side as your front or your back. I've seen people do it both ways. I'm actually going to use that side as my front and this side as my back. And doing it this way allows me to center my dome cap easily on my dome head according to the stitching that's on the cap and that's on the dome head. So now I'm going to use these T-pins to mark the measurements on my cap. I'm going to align the cap with my measurements that I already marked on the dome head. Once this step is completed, next is to make your measurements on your dome cap where your tracks are going to go. So you're going to need some measuring tape and some kind of fabric pencil or marker of some sort. I know a lot of people have used metallic markers. I'm going to be using a white pencil. And just to make sure that my measurements are exactly where they need to be, I'm going to use this T-pin to keep this tape measure in place while I'm making my marks. So that's what you see me doing here. Now, where you see me pointing, which is the 12-inch mark, that's where I'm going to start my marks because that is where the last track is going to sit on the wig. And right now, I'm just making 1-inch marks until I get to the very top. Now, in the front, I'm going to mark off where my parting space will be. It's going to be about a 1-inch parting space in between. So I'm marking between the 1 and the 2 because that metal spot on the tape measurer kind of throws me off. So it's easier to just start from 1 and then go to 2, mark that off, and then just draw up because I'm going to go 4 inches back. I'm going to start at the 4, or if you want to flip your tape measure around and start at 1 and then go back to 4, it's totally your preference. And just draw all the way up back 4 inches, and then you're going to connect those 2 lines with like a half moon. And this was the pencil that I use. I think I got this off of Amazon like a really long time ago. I don't remember the brand. I'm so sorry. But like I said, you're going to connect those 2 lines with like kind of a half moon shape just to connect them. Now I'm turning my wig cap around because from the U shape that I just made and then 4 inches back, I'm going back and I'm marking off the 1/2 inch mark in between 4 inches going all the way back up. Why am I doing that? That's because those 1/2 inch marks where the lines are a little closer to each other, those are going to be single tracks, single wefted tracks that are going to be laid or sewed on the wig cap. Where you see the larger space marks where it was 1-inch marks, those are going to be double tracks. We're going to double our tracks for at least 1, maybe 1.5 bundles. And I'm doing it this way because I want my wig to be full, but I want it to be natural and flat at the top. So that's why it's single at the top and then it's double at the back and the bottom because you won't be able to see it. So now after I have made my lines, I know exactly how much space I want in between each line. I'm going to carry these lines over to the side, and as I'm marking them, I don't have a ruler, so it's not, these lines aren't perfect. These are just guidelines, but you kind of want to use that rule of thumb, like that amount of space that's in between those original lines that you just drew. You want to make sure the same amount of space follows with the lines that you're carrying across to the rest of your wig cap. So that's basically what I am doing here. And don't worry if they're not completely perfect. Honestly, this may take you a couple of tries. I know this is probably my 100th wig that I've made. And starting off, I made a bunch of mistakes. I've had to wipe off those guidelines and start over a million times. So, and that's why I like using that white pencil as opposed to a Sharpie or a metallic marker, because I can just use a wet cloth and just kind of wipe it off. I made a mistake and start over or go back over those lines. Now, if you notice on the right side, there's a slightly bigger gap than on the opposite side. That's exactly what I'm saying when I say sometimes those lines aren't perfect, and that's okay. So I could have redid those lines. I did not feel like it, and I knew exactly where I was going to place my tracks because I've been doing this for a little bit. So this is the gist of it. This is how your guidelines should look. Now on to the fun part. We are going to double some tracks. So I'm going to be using 3 bundles of 28 inch and then about a half a bundle of 26 inches. And on one of these 28 inch bundles, I'm going to double the tracks. So that's what you see me doing here. I have unraveled the entire track and then I folded it in half, and I'm trying to place the tracks as close together as possible, and I'm using a zigzag stitch for this purpose. I'm not going to be using a zigzag stitch for the wig, just for doubling the tracks because I need them to be together. Once we're finished with doubling our tracks, we're going to remove this little attachment here so we can get a little bit of movement when it comes to moving our cap around on the sewing machine. And by the way, I didn't mention it before, but I am using a Singer sewing machine. So first, we're going to secure our track by going over back and forth on that end of the track a few times. I think I went about 4 or 5 times just to make sure that that track is secured and that it doesn't unravel at any point. And once I get to the opposite end, I'm going to do the exact same thing. Even though you can see through the cap, you just want to make sure that each track is laying just as flat as what you see in the video, just like that it's on the line and that there aren't any loose strings or snags underneath. And you're going to repeat this process for your double wefted tracks and your 1-inch lines all the way until you get to, of course, your 1/2-inch line. So basically secure the tracks on both ends, make sure that you're following your guidelines, and take your time. You don't want to stretch the cap. That's a big no-no, because if you stretch the cap, all that's going to do is create lumps and bumps, and we don't want a bumpy wig. That's not cute. So follow this process, and again, I can't stress this enough. Take your time. And if you're not comfortable using a sewing machine, you can absolutely sew it by hand. It's the same process in the beginning as making your measurement or taking your measurements, making your guidelines on your wig cap. And instead of moving on to the sewing machine, you would just do it on your wig cap. The only difference, of course, since you wouldn't be using a sewing machine, you wouldn't be doubling your tracks the same way. You would just be doing it by hand, and you would do it by hand on top of the cap. You don't have to do it prior to, but again, if you want to go through and sew those tracks together before you sew them onto your wig cap, you can absolutely do that. It's totally your preference. You could also use wig glue. I've seen that happen. I've also seen glue guns being used. So it's totally up to you, whatever makes you feel confident. So now that we've gotten all of our double tracks out the way, now it's time for our single tracks. It's the same motion, the same process. It's just now we are using single tracks. And once you get all the way to the top, your wig should look just like this. And you're going to have that little mesh in between where your leave out is going to be. You just cut that piece off. Be careful not to cut your actual track or to cut the thread. I would suggest cutting a little bit above that track and then going back and cleaning it up like I'm doing here. After you clean up the part that you have cut off, you don't have to do this step, but I go back over that top track just to make sure that it's secured and that it doesn't unravel. Now, this next step is completely optional and only if you, of course, have wig tags. I am going to secure my wig tag and at the bottom of my wig, and as you can see, I'm going over each corner, and then once I get to the end of the corner, I leave my needle down and then turn my wig because it just makes it a whole lot easier and I don't have to find my placement again. So just in case you needed a guide on how to do that. And then lastly, I'm going to place my clips. Now, a lot of people put combs in their U parts, and then they put the snap clips, I'm not sure what you call them, on the ends to, I guess, secure the wig. I like wig combs all throughout. I don't use those clip-in snaps because of the density and the heaviness of the wig. I just don't like anything pulling on my hair. That's a personal preference for me. You can do whatever, again, makes you feel confident and comfortable. Because with the clips, you have to do those by hand. I don't see how you can actually do those on a sewing machine. But with the wig combs, if you're going to do it on a sewing machine, you should absolutely take your time. I just got introduced to what it looks like to break a needle with doing these combs. This part is very nerve-wracking. I sped up the video just for the sake of time, but I was going extremely slow, and I went over the tip or the end of the clip and then went over the clip one time and then went over the opposite end a few times. I've seen people do it where they go over the clip once and then they reverse and go back over the clip. It's just too nerve-wracking for me. So that's how I secure my clips. And I have yet to have a clip come loose or undone. So if this gives you as much anxiety as it gives me, I feel like this is a very nerve-free way of securing your clips. So like I said, you go over the beginning a few times and then go over the actual clip, making sure that your needle is placed in between so that it doesn't hit that wire, and then go over the opposite end a few times after that. And this is what your finished wig should look like. And just in case I didn't highlight the specs of this wig, I did use 3 28-inch wavy bundles from Emerald Hair Extensions and half of a 26-inch wavy bundle, same company. So these bundles are available online at emeraldhairextensions.com. But this is the final product. You see how full it is. That is a full ponytail. It's nice and long, and it's nice and flat at the top. Now, I love a brushed out look, but I did want to see what it looked like in its natural state, so I washed and conditioned it. This is what it looks like wet, and this is what it looks like after I put it in underneath the dryer for a couple of minutes. This is the natural wave pattern of the wavy bundles, and this is me with the wig installed. I did not use a mirror when I put this wig on in front of the camera, so please forgive the fact that my leave out was not completely brushed throughout to cover the tracks at the top. But I wanted you guys to see an up close and personal look of what the wig looks like once it is placed in your head, and so that you can see how full this wig actually is. But I did take another video so that you could see a front view of how this wig looks. And that's pretty much what your wig should look like. It should look flat. It should look natural. It should look like it is hair growing out of your head. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And until next time, see you guys later.